The hashtag headlines.
What a Friday, June it'll be.
Oh yeah, we have a special guest joining us in the building right now. The man, or should I say the woman of the hour, the Honorable Prime Minister Leona Romeo Marlin. Good morning, Leona.
Good morning, Super. Good morning, Romer.
Good morning.
Yes, we do have the Prime Minister here with us. Now, before we even get into the interview, I got to give a quick funny story of how this whole thing was set up. So I got a message yesterday saying the former Prime Minister wants to come on your show. I'm like, okay, why? They're like, no, just set it up, just let us know. They want to come in for 8 o'clock tomorrow. Can you do it? I'm like, usually we do the news and thing, but we could do a special edition of the hashtag headlines. They're like, okay, cool, set it up. So in my mind, I'm sending them a message. I'm like, but why does the former Prime Minister want to come in and talk about, like, what do they want to talk about? Do they want to talk about this current political climate that we're in? I don't think Marcel wants to get involved. I don't think William Marlin wants to talk about it. And they're like, no, I'm talking about Leona. I'm like, oh, that's not the former Prime Minister. That's still the Prime Minister. No matter what you say, she's still the Prime Minister. Until somebody else swears in, like it or not, she is still the Prime Minister. Right, Leona?
Yes, indeed.
There you go. So welcome, Honorable Prime Minister Leona, here to the station with the attitude, Laser 101. Like I said, you are the woman of the hour. You have been feeling the pressure. The lights are on you right now. How does it feel?
It's interesting, very interesting, trying to find a proper balance to ensure that, number one, first of all, you always do the right thing. Secondly, that you don't throw anyone under the bus. And you try to give a lot of...
Step out of character.
Yeah, and trying to bring that balance, proper balance.
Yeah.
That's,
even though it's happening to you, because everybody's throwing you under the bus and everything.
And I'll tell you this much, in due time, everyone will see the things that it should be, but it doesn't mean that I have to follow how others are doing certain things. But nevertheless, I will stay above the fray.
Okay, so as everyone might know by now, there was, basically we have a new coalition. We have a new majority in government, and since then, they have decided to tell you guys that we give you the motion of non-confidence. But before that, you actually resigned. You resigned and invoked Article 59, which means it dissolves Parliament, which sends us now into elections. Yes. So let's talk about what led up to that, basically. So what happened? So of course we know there's a new majority, and then what happened? You got the call. How did you find out about all this?
Well, I believe I'm here looking at Rodney. How did we get the call? But basically, the decision was made as Council of Ministers that we will invoke Article 59. We understood what that meant. We had a talk with His Excellency, and he indicated to us that we will have to resign, and we had absolutely no problem with resigning and let the process continue as it should. And we gave that information to the governor. It was signed. We also sent in our resignation letters as well, and that's how the ball started rolling. I truly believe in democracy, and democracy is allowing the people to decide on the future of St. Maarten and the direction that they want St. Maarten to go. I think that this morning, I believe someone told me, you are the reflection, the people is the politicians are the reflection of the people. And I thought that was a very interesting statement. The politicians are the reflection of the people. So I am urging persons, or giving them the opportunity, is you want your reflection in government, then you vote accordingly. I also know that I got a lot of emails, I got a lot of telephone calls as it relates to new political parties wanting to be, the opportunity to be chosen and to contest the election. And should we continue in the direction that we had in our first LB, that was not possible. So here we are, we're in a dilemma, but nevertheless, that's how everything started. But
that's interesting that you mentioned that, because you mentioned that there was a first LB that was written, and everybody thinks now the one that we recently had, which says that postulation date was on October the 2nd and elections would be on November 25th. Everybody thinks that's the original.
That's not the original.
So according to you yesterday during the Council of Ministers press briefing, you explained that was not the original.
No, that was not the original. And I can tell you even now that the new proposals that are coming, and I won't reveal those dates, are very much in line with the first proposal that my staff, so the legal advisor and my policy advisor, proposed. That is very much in line with that. And again, it was something that we consulted with the main voting bureau, so the Central Voting Bureau, and also the Electoral Council. There is no win-win. But you must understand that, and there's no blame game either, to be fair. You have one side wanting to uphold the Constitution, which indicates the 90 days, and then you have the other side that is saying, look, we also have legislation that we are governed by and we have to follow. So you're at an impasse. Why? Because the electoral laws have not been changed. And because they haven't been changed, we have this situation, but this is not the first time, Super and Romeo. We had this in 2017, we had it in 2015, and I believe it was also in 2012. No, not in 20, so 2015 and 2017 for sure. And it hasn't been changed. The question is, why hasn't it been changed? There was a mandate given in 2015 to change the electoral laws. I was a parliamentarian at that time. I can recall persons stating that, or one political party stating that it was only focused on ship jumping. And for me, I knew coming from the Civil Registry Department that electoral reform does not only include or address ship jumping. You have to look at various aspects of the things that are not working. From the Civil Registry perspective, there were things in the current Landsverordening for electoral, the kiesverordening, so the electoral law, that needed changing, or it was just not practical. We see the same thing for the Central Voting Bureau, and also there were talks about the electoral reform, not electoral, but the financial aspect of it from the Electoral Council. I can recall even during the elections, certain things is like, why do we have to get an audited, a certified auditor to do your financials? And it's a problem for small parties. And those were the talks at the time, and I was like, okay, when I became Prime Minister, one of the first things that we did was to try to put an electoral work group together. And the objective was for them to look at all of the laws, or look at all of the things that need changing, so that it can be aligned with the Constitution as well, and so that the process can be smoother before we have another election. Unfortunately, we haven't reached to the part where it has been finalized. They have started talks. I do know that also Parliament had started an electoral committee to address certain issues as it relates to electoral reform. I personally think the time has come for us to start thinking on an intellectual level, so on an academic level, what kind of system will be feasible for St. Maarten, and hear from academics where, and we look at, I remember I had a conversation with a member of Anguilla, one of their ministers, and they were looking at how St. Maarten did our elections, but we have problems in our own system.
Right.
And I was looking at how Anguilla is doing their elections as it relates to district representation. It's a whole different philosophy, a whole different method.
Right.
And then you also have the French side, their type of elections. Would it work on a Dutch side?
Right.
And I think that in general, I'm not saying which one is the right one. I know Tortola also has a different system. What I am saying is that the time has come for us to have that academic debate and research done to see, is the current system that we have feasible for St. Maarten?
Right. Is it working for us, right?
Is it really working for us, and can we improve it? And if we're going to improve it, which method will work? Can coalition governments really work for St. Maarten?
Well, but the question is, would you think, because let's say the system, you call it a game, so the system is a game, and then in that game you have players. So is the game really broken, or is the players? Because that's something you have to look at too, the integrity of the people involved in the game as well.
Well, you know, that can be a certain aspect to the situation, but again, if you don't start it from the root, then where are we going? It doesn't matter who is in the game.
Right.
If the players don't have integrity, if the players
if the file is corrupt, or
it will always,
It
no
will always be,
matter no matter what system you have, it will be there. But I do believe, and I strongly hope that persons who will be changing the laws will also implement the possibility for parliamentarians to be screened. I think that is where we need to start.
Okay.
That, the people know whether they're getting credible persons and trustworthy persons to enter into politics to represent them, because that's also where some of the issues lie. And I think that when that is done, it will diminish or lessen some of the risk factors when persons are going into politics and representing the people of St. Maarten.
Now, Honorable Prime Minister, let's go back to the first Landsbesluit that you spoke about, compared to the one that was signed by the governor. What happened? Because, like you said, there was an original one that was sent, and apparently there seems to be a change. Something was changed. Someone changed something, and a new and a new one came about, and that's the one basically that we know about now. And now you, of course, submitted a third one. But let's talk about what happened. What happened in between? Who changed it? How did it change? What were the original dates there?
I can say that I think before the conversation I said I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, but I can state that
just one tire.
The team.
Just a foot.
Just soften the gas.
You guys are something else. But I can say though, because I know that I'm the one that is getting all of the blame, and I'm the one that's getting most of the heat. What I can say is my team went with different dates. My team came back with different dates.
Okay, so
I will
give us. You don't have to give us the exact date, but when would originally elections would have been held? Can you at least give us that?
At least a month.
The month, but in our first estimation, we did the first estimation. We still have it here. We had we took the 2 months to postulation date. We came up with November 26th.
Okay.
And then election day would have been January 13th, and then the new parliament would have sat on February 18th. That was the projection that my team...
That was the first original date.
That was the projection.
So that means also with postulation being November 26th, it would have given new parties
the
opportunities or defective parties to come back and then to okay.
So now they just change the whole thing and put elections a day before postulation day and put on the 25th.
Right.
Well, the thing is though that when you are busy with elections and when you're busy, again, this would have incorporated everyone. But again, there was a difference in opinion as to when is the date of the inwerkingstreding. The date of when, I'm trying to figure out, is the calculation. So you have to calculate from the date of the sitting of the parliament and go back.
Oh, so you have to start by the end and work your way back.
And we work your way back. That's how I always knew it, being at the Civil Registry Department when we were planning elections. And then, but then others thought, no, it is the date from the time that the besluit is signed, then you calculate forward. So there was a difference in opinion of such. And it still remains a difference in opinion, but nevertheless, what is key is that the electoral laws needs to be aligned with the Constitution, because one way or the other, both sides had validity in the sense of one side not wanting to break the laws of the Constitution, because the laws of the Constitution is higher than that of the Landsverordening, the local laws, but yet you cannot ask also the persons that are governed by the local laws to also break it, and that was the stance of the Central Voting Bureau. And as you see, they made a stand and say that they will not, they made their positions available, and that still had to be approved by the committee that governs them. So it wasn't that they could have just walked out either, but nevertheless, I'm glad to say that we have spoken to them yesterday, and we came with a compromise. They are willing to participate still in the elections once the governor signs the new proposed dates, and then we are good to go.
Okay. So had the current November 25th date stand, they weren't gonna contest. Well, they weren't going to be a part of this election.
You mean the October 2nd?
The October
2nd postulation.
Correct.
Okay, so now that it's postponed, now that it's moved, they say, it's fair now, so we don't mind stepping back in.
Because the problem is for them, and I agree with it as well. Sometimes you just have to stay out of the whole fray and the mess that is happening outside and look at all angles of it. And they're not saying that, I'm not saying that they were wrong. They're absolutely right. They need the time needed to execute elections in a proper way. They have planning to do. They have so many things that are involved with the Central Voting Bureau, and if you don't give them the proper time to do such, they will not be able to execute their work accordingly. So you have to take that into account, because they are the ones that are sending out the letters. They are the ones that are in there with the ballots. They are the ones that have to do the work. So we need to make sure that they have sufficient time. Now, of course, I started to look for a plan B if this had fell through. I was looking at the host Bureau from Curacao, if they would be able to come and assist us, but indeed we couldn't actually do that either, because you have to be written in here in St. Maarten to do such. But what we will do is ask for observatory status for them, as we did in the last election, so that to ensure that transparency and nothing goes on, especially on election day. For when it comes to persons exercising their rights to vote.
Now, throughout this whole ordeal, we've been looking at it from the Central Voting Bureau point of view, from the governor's point of view, from your point of view. But what about the people's point of view? Because that's another thing, that they're the ones that are suffering as well. Because not only do we have to go to the polls again, but apparently this election is going to cost the country at least 400,000 guilders. The post office as well. They need time also to get everything together. And whatnot. Also, we had MP Duran saying that the staff elections is premature and also very immature. And some people are saying, that you called elections because you want to be spiteful. Especially, you also mentioned that you're not running as well. So why even call elections and whatnot?
It's part of democracy. You leave the people decide. It's not for Leona Romeo to decide. It's for the people of St. Maarten to decide, and that is their right to do such. And it was the decision of the Council of Ministers, and I stand by the decision. It was not premature. We looked at all angles. It was not an easy decision to make. And of course, I know that people coming out, we're still in a recovery process. But who has the right to determine the way the country should run? It's the people. At the end of the day, it's the people of St. Maarten. So you can't say that I didn't put you there. If you voted, you're the one that is putting the individuals there. Give that choice to the people. That is their democratic right. So whether others think it's premature or not timely, etc., I can understand people thinking about that. But guess what? That is their opinion. But again, it's still democracy, and democracy, that's the society that we live in.
Now, the third decree, when can we expect to get an answer for that?
The third decree?
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we can get it today, because tomorrow is yes, Friday is the last day of the week, and I said that we wanted it done. I thought that I would have gotten it yesterday, but then it was, I'm told yesterday that the governor had some remarks, so we had to amend certain things, and then we will send it up this morning again to him, and hopefully we get it back today, unless something comes up again. Nothing surprises me anymore.
But what is the governor's role in all of this? Because I believe that there's a misconception amongst the people as to what his role is. So when you send on, when you dissolve parliament, you send on everything to him, what is his role? What does he have to do, and what can't he do? Because nobody looks at him or blames him or say, okay, but he could have done it. Because I don't think people understand what the governor's role is. People quicker know what the prime minister's role is versus the governor. So what is the governor's role in the process of all of this?
In actuality, it's either to sign or send it up for annulment to the kingdom.
Okay.
And what we do is we do consult with the governor. Since I've became prime minister, I have always consulted with His Excellency, because I hold him up to very high regards, and I have always done that. And we did the same thing for this process. I didn't change. Nevertheless, one of the things that I'm told that cannot be done is make changes or make recommendations or impose anything. And I think that in discussions, we have had some discussions and disagreements with certain interpretations as it relates to his legal team and my legal team. But nevertheless, I think that in the end, it's either he signs or sends it for annulment.
Okay, so let's say, for example, if tampering, so to speak, was done with the kingdom, they can pull the plug on that whole thing and say, you know, you need to step down or appoint somebody else, etc., 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 because it's against what he is supposed to do?
I wouldn't say tampering. That is a deep word. I would say that it's either it's signed or it's not signed. If it's not signed and you have discrepancy from it, you just send it to the kingdom and then.
So if you don't want to do it, let them do it.
Yes. That's,
okay.
So what's the process? So you guys make the council of ministers. They make the landsbesleit. They send it to the governor. The governor signs, and then do you guys sign? Does the COM sign after that?
Once it comes back, yes, we sign.
That it's signed.
Yes.
So then that leaves the question again: who made the second LB with these new dates? It was signed by the governor, and then of course the council of ministers, or in this case, I think it was the acting prime minister, which was Wycliffe Smith. He signed off on your behalf. Yeah. Now, is that even possible? And why would he sign something like that if it wasn't in line with the first dates? The
team went up with some dates that we had, and they came back with other dates because there was not a discrepancy, but there was a difference in opinion as to the date from when the date of when the parliament has to be dissolved, and the date that.
For postulation and
no, the date that the LB is signed and the calculation. There was differences in that opinion. Okay, so we took the dates that were stated, and those dates were not agreed upon by the main voting bureau, and we said, we got the dates back. If our dates were done, I'm sure that the main voting bureau would have, as you can see.
But then when the second LB came back and you saw the dates were changed, then why?
The first LB had the October 2nd dates. The second LB were the new dates that we were going to propose, and then at that time, the main voting bureau had already resigned. And so we were faced with a different dilemma. And now with that dilemma, we had to go back to the table. So now that has to be changed, and a new LB is now in place. It's going to be signed off, and then we move from there.
Okay.
It's not the governor didn't sign the second LB as yet. He was going to, but then the main voting bureau resigned. They made their positions available, so then they would not have gone with those dates either. So they wanted to make sure that what they had sufficient time to do what they're supposed to do, because in the second one it would have still have the parliament to be dissolved on the 23rd of December. Yes. And that was not going to be feasible for them either. So
right. Because I'm still trying to understand. It's a little bit confusing because, like you said, the first one had dates, but then now the other one came back. So I don't know. It's still a bit confusing.
Well, the point
but like you said, everything will be revealed when the time is right. I don't know what that could mean for whoever's involved, or even on the island as a whole. Like you said, you want to be diplomatic in this whole thing, and we'll have to wait and see. I don't know if that's good news or bad news, but
no, I think that in the end, it's good news for everyone. All political parties that have the desire to participate and contest this election will have the possibility to do such. I will state, and let me say it from now, that all political parties or even persons interested in politics should not wait last minute to get themselves together. If you're serious about representing St. Maarten, get yourself together from before. Start. Don't wait last minute. So if you have a political desire to be representing the people of St. Maarten, it doesn't start when a snap election is called or when election. It starts from a couple years before, a couple months before. Start getting your stuff together, making sure that you have your people in place, that you start campaigning, whether it's on the ground or whatever, but you start getting everything together. Don't wait last minute, because also, I must say in all fairness, I've been hearing about that new political party for quite some time, since from I think last year, and I'm not sure where they stood, as I know they are supposed to be registered or whatever, but I know that other parties also, other persons are interested in. Our constitution just doesn't have anything for snap elections. But if people were prepared from before, then it would have been a smooth ride, for, at least for them. That's one aspect from it, But anyway, we cross the hurdle as it comes. Challenges is just that, a challenge, but it doesn't mean that you can't overcome those challenges.
Now, I know your time is very limited, so I have one more question. Of course, the motion of non-confidence was passed against the current Council of Ministers. So basically, some of the requirements were, you're not allowed to make any major decisions and whatnot. What about everything else that was taken care of, like especially the loan when it comes to the airport and other things that you guys have been working on when it comes to the World Bank and the European Fund and whatnot? Does that still stand? Can changes be made? How is everything working with that now?
Well, I can tell you that when you're in a caretaker status, and we've had these discussions as well with the governor, and we've had the discussions as well as Council of Ministers, we cannot do new business. But things that are already ongoing, we need to finalize. Yes, you can. The government has to run. The government does not come on a standstill because we are in a caretaker status. So you continue the process. As it relates to the EIB Bank, the loan and the World Bank and trust funds, projects, etc., things continue until the new government comes in. We haven't stopped the process, and we aren't signing anything new. Anything that we're ongoing and it's pending finalization, that's what we're finalizing right now. But we're being very, very careful to make sure that we stick to all of the rules and stick to all of the guidelines, because when I leave, I'm making sure that I'm leaving with a clean slate.
Okay. Have you been hearing any talks, like maybe other people have been coming to you, like let's say from the UN, which you recently were at, also maybe the Dutch government? Have you been hearing anything about what's going on in St. Maarten?
Indeed. We had comments from, of course, the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Mr. Mark Rutte, and of course the King also made his comments as to being very concerned about what's happening here on St. Maarten. So it has attention. I know that the other colleagues that Curacao, Aruba, of course, have heard of it. People in Barbados, and you get to people in the CARICOM countries, so they are very much aware of what goes on here in St. Maarten. So I think again, it's our politics is not local politics; it is international
for sure,
for sure. And then with social media, everything is widespread. So there you go.
Now you also hear the talks that the Prime Minister is setting us up for the Dutch takeover.
I'm not setting myself up for the Dutch takeover. I think they are setting themselves up for the Dutch takeover if they continue in this manner. I am not. I have never heard that the Dutch wants to take over St. Maarten. That has never been in any of the talks that I have been in. I know that we got $580 million as a grant from the Netherlands, and not in no talk at all have they ever talked about taking over St. Maarten. What they have talked about is ensuring that the monies that were given to us from the Netherlands is spent in a accountable way, and so therefore they have placed conditions on such, because they are very concerned about that the monies are spent in a bad way. And sometimes you have to ask yourself, I don't have a problem with that. Give me the money. I'm going to make sure spend it in the correct way. So bring your conditions. I don't have a problem with your conditions because I have nothing to hide.
Okay. Well, the Honorable Prime Minister Leona Romeo Marlin is here with us in the studio today. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know everybody wants to have a meeting with you, a discussion with you, and we want to definitely thank you for taking some time out to join us here on the Super Duper Morning Show. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me, and I wish everyone the best of luck for the upcoming elections, and represent St. Maarten well, and have a clean campaign. And thank you all for being the voices of St. Maarten on 101, Laser 101.
Now, before you leave, we have to ask you one more question, which is the question of the day.
This
is
I want to hear.
Very, very interesting to see how you are going to do this one. Badly explain your current profession.
Badly.
So just if somebody asks you, so
what you just do for a living?
As certain people might say, dumb it down. Explain.
So, I don't know if you want me to do it in the negative or you want me to do it in the positive.
However, you're in an elevator. You have to pitch it. You have a 5-year-old that asks you, "Hey, what do you do? What's your job?" So you have to explain it to them so they can understand what you do.
As a Prime Minister,
Yes.
I represent the people of St. Maarten. I am the chair of the Council of Ministers. I have an international obligation, regional and local. That's not for a 5-year-old though.
No, that's still
But
too,
I have-
that's still too confusing. Let's say if you're a chef, I put things in a pot and I stir it around and give it to people to eat. That's
so
badly explained.
complicated. Oh my goodness, that's just like the weirdest thing to ask me.
So,
because
like, if you have a 5-year-old and you're 5-year-old, Mommy, what do you do for a living? Explain it to your
I work for the country. I work for the people of St. Maarten to make things better for all citizens that are living here.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you wanted me to be in the way. I would be like, yes, I work for.
Or you could say
I have a job.
You could say
that is very, very pressing, but it's a very gratifying job, but it's a very ungrateful job. But it's okay. You're not doing it for the praises. You're doing it for the people. Sometimes they see it, and sometimes they don't.
Okay, there you go. All right. Thank you, Prime Minister, for joining us today. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we got some hot coffee to spill. We're probably going to get into some of the answers also for today's question of the day. We got the prize at 9, plus today's Thursday. So later on, are
you
ready?
Which is a long-term investment that should be